for nothing.
Yeah, wow, I'm excited. I'm sitting down. This probably is the last time that we'll be sitting down with Carol, Kara, Phoebe. I thought you guys might like say, yeah, that's me when I said your name, because I don't know that everybody knows you. So Carol,
Hey.
there we go. Kara, there she is. Phoebe. Yes. Yeah, this is probably our last like moment we'll have these three together. They've been doing a third year with us this whole year, and they're just about ready to graduate. I think like a week from Wednesday, you guys are moving onwards and upwards.
Yeah.
Next week.
Is that the truth? When do you graduate?
Next Wednesday. You got
Okay,
it.
next
Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
next Thursday. There we go. So we figured we'd kind of interrupt our normally scheduled program to just do a wrap up with these three and talk about their internship, doing a third year. I really think it's a conversation around leadership ultimately, but it's also an opportunity for us to kind of recognize them, say goodbye to them, let them kind of have a moment on camera with the JC world. What's up? How are you guys?
We're good.
I think it's tricky because there's three of you, so none of you know when to speak. There's a lot
Yeah.
of silent pauses,
We'll figure it out.
and you guys, feel free to just take that mic, even though there's no mic to hold. So we just got back. We did a team trip. Like we always try to wrap up the year with a little bit of a team trip. I heard from a few of you, you were kind of surprised by that. Like Kara and Phoebe were both like, wow, you didn't need to do that for us, Lance. And I'm like, no, that's just what we do. We like to do team and be together. So we're definitely wrapping up your guys' year. How's the year been? What's like, maybe share some highlights, funny stories, anything that stands out to you.
Wow. Well, I think one of the funniest stories had to have been the retreat at the beginning of the year, kind of a full circle moment, was when
Yes.
I had the idea to play Catch the Flag in the middle of the redwoods. And it started with Carol not really wanting to like play much.
No, she was like, no thanks.
Yeah.
I was definitely like, hey, we're gonna be like kids. We went to a park, we were swinging on the swings. Immediately people are like, and I'm like, hey, we're playing tag on that play structure over there, basically a jungle gym.
Yeah.
And I think people slowly but surely joined me in my childlikeness, but I think initially there was a lot of like, no thanks, I'm not in. And then it quickly devolved into, we played a full-blown game of Capture the Flag.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which reminds me of, like, kind of developed into running around in the woods to these guys.
Yeah, but it was like I had, like you told me, to protect the flag. Don't let anyone touch the flag.
That's
And I was
right.
like, I'm not playing, I'm just protecting the flag. But I mean, she came
Yeah.
and then
Well, and then me and Cara were on the same team, and we were like, we're figuring this out, so we've got to find the flag. Couldn't find it for a long time, and then we just find Carol in this section of the woods, and we were like, where's the flag? And we start approaching, but the whole rule was that we can't physically touch each other, right? Or we like have to go to jail. So came up with the tactic that Cara basically self-sacrificed herself. I was like, I will sacrifice myself, body offering to intercept between me and Carol so that I could catch the flag. So Cara just like launches herself onto Carol because Carol's over the flag and won't move. So like goes through and Roky's
broke so many rules.
Yeah. You're trying to make way for me to grab the flag. I can't reach it, and you guys just end up like wrestling in the woods for
quite a while.
Yeah, but first of all, I didn't break any rule because first of all, I wasn't playing. Second of all, he said to protect the flag. So I was doing my job.
Yeah.
So there is no rules in there. Just it.
Yeah, Carol did great. I think it was Kara who broke the rules. Possibly. Yeah, I don't know. I just walked up on that scene as it was happening. I didn't see anything, all the buildup. I just saw two women wrestling in the woods. And it was awesome. I was like, wow, okay, these two are very engaged. And again, initially Carol was like, no, I don't want to play. And then she's like in a full-on wrestling match on the forest floor. I was like, okay, there's the passion.
Definitely
That
a
was
lot of
fun.
fun this year, and I think that's added a lot to the year, like taking time to be together and to realize that like life and ministry maybe specifically, but in general, like your purpose there's more to life than just your purpose,
Yeah.
also living. So that's been really good, I think.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that thing can get out of balance. You're just so focused on your dreams or pursuing your dreams or executing goals. Maybe you forgot how to like be unplugged and strike a balance. Yeah, keep things moving. I think, like keep things moving in the sense of, yeah, you're moving towards your goals. That's great. But what about the other elements of life, like physical health, soul health, joy, fun? I mean, I do think it should be fun as you're pursuing your dreams as well, but I don't know. We just want to prioritize for family, and so we do stuff like that. So yeah, maybe highlights from the year for you guys. Could be other funny stories, or could just be stuff that felt like a strong point. I mean, I think we could also just dovetail into that big question is like things you've learned. Because again, I do think you're doing an internship or a third year is what we call that in our context. That's a unique experience. So maybe that's a more specific question. What do you think the value of an internship or doing a third year experience is? I would imagine the place you settle in dictates some of how that goes, but in your guys' experience, what would be the value of attaching to a group like Justice Collective for a year and serving them?
Yeah, I think for me, sorry, specifically, it's like because we are not in school environment.
Yeah.
So like this transition is, time that we have a little bit of school that we used to have 4 days a week, like worship, soaking and glory and everything.
Yeah.
And then we transition it like for the office. And then, but we also have like a third year class. So I think it's like a great opportunity, like to do this transition, like not so painful, because I feel like if you are in a school environment serving pastors, you are like in this, like environment all the time, glory, woohoo, Holy Spirit and stuff. And then to transition, I think is like more difficult when you are in this environment than us, that we are like, we have this balance, like real life and then glory, like we have the spiritual stuff and we have also the earthly stuff.
Yeah, it's good. And anyone else want to chime in on that? Like your guys' sense of value for something like a third year?
Yeah, I think I see two like aspects to it. First is just like in a more general sense of like career or ministry, like the connections that you make, the time you get to put your feet on the ground and like kind of grow a little in a world that you didn't build yourself, I think is super valuable, especially if you're looking at next steps and especially if you want to be in something related,
Yeah.
I think also like personally has been super, super valuable for me. And I think it could be a lot of different things to different people.
Sure.
For me specifically, and maybe representing a demographic of like a chaotic life, in my past, and like trying to integrate more into a healthy life. And like being part of this team has been, I think, really huge for that. Like maybe the first time I've been part of a team that it like I was able to be part of the team and also get feedback to help me grow more toward what I need. Like that's a huge stepping stone, I think, and so valuable.
Yeah, it's good. Phoebe, any thoughts from you on that?
Yeah. I think the main word that comes to mind when I think of like what is the value and what is the experience, it is like growing.
Yeah.
It's a huge growth experience.
Yeah.
I think for me in that, the value of it has been just perspective. Like I feel like my perspective in so many different areas of life has completely changed this year.
Sure.
By getting to like be a part of a team of people that have greater perspective than I do on like life and ministry and how to do both of those things. Wow, how to do it in a team. Just all these different areas, which I'm like, I mean, I'm young and don't have a whole lot of experience in, and feels like just being a part of this team for just 9 months, that has grown like so much more than I would have thought it was.
Yeah.
And
that's
like,
great.
Even just the kind of perspective of the bigger picture, and then what you're doing like in Justice Collective, what the part that has to play in the bigger picture, and the part that each person on the team has to play, like just that perspective and way of seeing things. Yeah,
I think, I mean, I definitely value the opportunity to have third year students for multiple reasons. One, I mean, it's just a benefit on a purely selfish level. Like I can receive from students that come to serve us. I mean, purely practically, like they can contribute to our world. We can delegate responsibilities, and I think that's, I'm happy, I'm thankful. I don't think that's the primary. For me, the primary is what you just described, and that is the opportunity for real practical leadership development that will happen. And again, most of growth happens by doing and less by theorizing. And there's obviously so much value to reading and listening to speakers and leaders, but at the end of the day, until you start getting your hands busy, like that's probably the highest level of learning you're going to achieve. So I'm very conscious. It's like when you come in and you're going to serve in our world, yeah, I'm going to benefit from you. You're going to be somebody I delegate responsibilities and tasks to. Yeah, but that's probably 30%. Like 70% of it is you're going to grow as a leader, and you're going to learn what it takes to actually get stuff done, and how to work within a team, and how to think big picture, and how to break it down into bite-sized pieces. And you basically had a 9-month opportunity of like learning how to run a world. And I'm not saying my world is vast, but we do have enough going on within it to where, you're caught up, you have stuff that you're responsible for. And I just love that process of exchange where you're learning, you're growing. I feel like all three of you did what, most every third year student does. And that is like, you come in as a learner, you're humble, you're willing to take input. I don't think growth, when you say, Phoebe, growth is what happened, I don't think growth is always the easiest thing. We can talk about it now as we're crossing the finish line together. Like, yeah, it was a great year, but I know there are moments through the year where it's like, I don't like the way this feels, and growth is hard, and I'm resisting growth. And I mean, I think, we all resist growth at certain levels, right? But to me, that is the biggest win. It's like you're developing as people. You can translate that into, you develop as leaders. You also can translate that into, you've learned some skills, maybe, in how to execute stuff, how to hold vision while executing task, but I just think there's a lot of nuance and a lot of ins and outs and different shades of color to the leadership journey. And I do think when you're doing a third year, like you get a pretty good exposure to some of that gamut, some of that range, you know. Anything you guys feel like you'll be carrying with you as you move on into the next season in terms of that specifically, like maybe leadership experience or practical, like, yeah, how to get stuff done or how to work in team? I mean, there's a lot we could talk about.
Yeah, I think a big one for me is like realizing that the team is only as strong as honesty and mutual respect is.
Yeah.
Like the level of efficiency you'll have. And probably recognizing I don't think before I realized how important it is to put in the hard work there of like maintaining even if you're just working with somebody, like you have to be able to have the lines open and have respect for each other or like things break down. So that's definitely a big thing that I learned this year.
Yeah, that is whoa. Time out. Like, let's talk. That is big because for me as a leader, like I'm constantly holding this tension of vision as well as execution of vision. You know, like you can't just have vision without getting stuff done, but you can't just get stuff done without an actual vision. And like, that's a great tension in and of itself. But without what you just described, none of that stuff moves. If you don't have actual trust and healthy interdependence within your team, and it is so natural in the process of executing a vision for people to develop mistrust or for people to pull away from each other. And you know, it is as common as breathing because everybody's caught up in a great battle. Like none of us are immune from the hardships of life. And then we come to work or we go to our ministry or we show up to fulfill our dreams. And yet we're dragging into the room the challenges that we're dealing with, you know, our internal state, maybe crazy circumstances that are going down with family or with our finances. And all of a sudden just getting a task done isn't really that easy. And then if you're not like communicating with your team about why it's so hard to get that task done, the next thing you know, trust is broken and people are disappearing and you're like, what happened? Like, where is so-and-so? And what happened to that one thing we were working on? And then 6 months later, you're like picking up a drop ball. And I don't know, has anybody ever navigated some of what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, this is just like so real.
Yeah.
And I mean, unless we're robots, right? Unless we're just like, forget it, I don't feel a thing. And I don't know. What do you guys want to say to that? Because that's a really big point, Kara.
One more thing. Like, I thought it was so profound when we were chatting about it. And you said, like, this is basically what it comes down to. In a lot of, this is ministry. This is like moving things forward. It is communicating, like,
Yeah.
getting everyone on the same page, building things together. Like, that was helpful for me to hear.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like,
Basic, simple stuff. But
you maybe have great ideas that you're going for, and it's like, actually a lot of that work is just going to look like the people that you're interacting with.
yeah, it'll stop or start based on the people you're working with, man. And I think that's why some people choose to just like get it done themselves. Maybe it's a lot easier, but you can't really scale that. You know, you can't like, there's no such thing as multiplicity if it's just you alone trying to do something. That's cool. So that's something that you're taking with you as you move forward. The dynamic of like relationships, make it go. Anything from Carol or Phoebe as you're like thinking about things you've gleaned from the year that you'll try to apply maybe into a new season or a new opportunity you step into?
Yeah, I think for me, like this team stuff is like very strong as well because for me it was like it's challenging to work with so many people sometimes,
Yeah,
like
sure.
it's for I discovered myself because I never done a job like this. So
Yeah.
I've done like a lot of different stuff. So like working as a team it was like really challenging, but it was like really good as well because
Mm.
I could learn and I could grow in this, like sometimes I would just, oh, let me do my tasking here, like getting emails for students. Sometimes I got so annoyed, it was like, Jesus, I just need to breathe and like be patient, give me your heart. Because like this relationship stuff sometimes is very tricky,
Yeah, yeah.
but at
It
the
is.
end of the year I'm like, okay, it's I did the best I could,
Yeah.
like some people might be happy, some people might be not happy, but I mean I did the best as I could. I tried to be gentle.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know and then it's like it was very challenging for me, but it's like very good like to learn how to relate with people and stuff,
Yeah.
yeah. And even like you as a leader, like you taught me a lot how to be like a loving leader and like patient and just respectful. And yeah, I think this like I'm gonna take with me for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge is the relationships are happening, and I mean, we all love relationships and we want relationships. It's just when there's the rub. So how do you navigate the rubs? Because the rubs they're just, well, they're a part of relationships. Um,
Mhm.
and I think we always have that choice to, I think it's healthy to have boundaries and maybe like not pay attention to certain things that, they don't need your attention.
Mhm.
On the other hand, conversely, you don't want to fully ignore things that are actually impacting your connection with people, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to turn and face those things. You need to give those things some time so that there's a way to learn and understand, okay, what's happening with so and so, what's happening with me. I definitely noticed that, again, stewarding many third year teams over the years. Like I don't know how many teams we've done this with. I think the individuals that make the choice to kind of turn and look and like, hey, can we talk this through, versus the individuals that are just like, doesn't matter, and there's literally some ignoring going on. That's where I'm like, oh shoot, that's probably not going to serve you well in the future. But again, it's normal to have boundaries. You don't have to pay attention to everything that bothers you. I think, we're humans.
Can I add something to this too?
Of course, yeah.
I think it's like to recognize the season you were in. It's very important too,
It's good.
because sometimes I could like, oh, I cannot handle this. Can you just help me, please? Can you just send an email? Can you, like help me
Yeah.
out? Because I can't, because I'm not in this season of like, being in contact with people. And then sometimes I was like, I need help. Can you help me, please? Like to actually, because for me, it's very difficult to ask for help. And
Yeah.
like to be able to ask for help sometimes it was like very very good for me, like I learned a
Uh,
lot.
I was gonna say that before you mentioned that. I like the way, from what I recognize, like the way you guys really try to cover each other and give each other grace, and I think also mutually challenge each other when there was a need to do so. And it looked like you guys were really kind of huddling in a healthy way and trying to help each other through. And because again, I do think my world can be a shock to the system for a BSSM student that's used to something like, because we're just so practical and we're getting so much done. I think the school ministry, they're getting a lot done, but they're also, it's a different context, a lot of prayer, a lot of worship, a lot of, a lot of listening to great speakers. And um, so I appreciate that. And I think that's great, Carol, that like, in your season, you needed to ask for help and you did. Good job. That would be you facing something that might have been difficult. And that's a lot of courage. Anything from you, Phoebe? Like you think about what you might be taking forward with you onto the next setting or context you'll be falling into.
Yeah. actually thinking, kind of mulling this over the weekend, like just writing up some things about like what this year is about and what I've learned. And
Just a little louder, sorry.
okay, I think the ability to face things head on is kind of what I landed on.
Nice.
I think it's funny because it's like in this like team context, I can see it there as well, like relationally.
Yeah.
Facing struggles head on personally.
Yeah.
And within team and within work.
Yeah.
And also in the bigger picture, like I think something which you like develop in other people is the ability to like face issues of the generation head on, you know?
Come on.
Big scale.
Come on.
And seeing how to do that. Because I think sometimes it can feel so out there, like how do you actually do that and where do you start? It's been like, honestly, even just having conversations about things, it's like a really good start. It actually feels like a lot of movement happens.
Yeah.
Like having conversations about issues out in the open, putting them out there, like the interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
just,
love it.
Yeah. That.
Yeah, I think I've always been a believer in like this whole idea of student movement. Student movement's like dreaming, and you're like getting together, and you're like conspiring, and you're like, passion. You're passing ions. You're like passing your passion onto each other, and just by talking about things, sometimes there's movement. Hopefully, our platform is also educating people, helping people's eyes open to stuff and recognizing, well, there are big issues being confronted and dealt with and real leadership being exercised instead of just, I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to do. Right. But I love that. Like we can talk about things and stuff can happen. Yeah. Like we are passionate about taking action, not just talking, but talking towards an end. And
I think when you talk about it as well, though, it brings a sense of, we're actually able to do something about it, because instead of it just being this thing out there, this issue, whatever it is, it's like, no, once you're kind of engaging with it just on a level of actually talking about it, then it just becomes an issue or a problem, like any other issue or problem that you could see, which therefore has a solution of some sort. It just systemizes it, like there's an issue, there is solution, and this is what we can do about it.
It's great. I love that. Yeah, it's very empowering. And I guess it does what you're saying is like learning to face things. Yeah, it requires courage, but sometimes we blow things up to require levels of courage that are not realistic. Maybe we just need the courage to like just approach it.
Yeah.
And then we start deconstructing it or looking at it from different angles. And it's like, oh, I can play a part here. Or, well, I have a friend that's like really good at that. I should see if he wants to do something about this. And I love that. That's cool. And then I think another thing, I'm not hearing you say it. I want to mention this. When Carol stops and like encourages me and says, yeah, your leadership, Lance, really impacted me. I do think that's another thing to generalize about when it comes to internships, third year opportunities, even, like potential vocational opportunities. Like you end up getting from the leader that you're running with, like just straight up, there was a transference. This isn't me blowing my horn right now. This is me just like generalizing about a principle. When I stop and serve within a particular environment, I'm just going to get some transfer. There's just things that maybe I wasn't good at that the leader is, that all of a sudden I've got a skill set in. And there's another dynamic that I would love for people to pay attention to. And it's like, there's anointing within responsibility. When you take on a role, like there's actually an anointing inside of that role. So if you're you're in a mission, the mission of Justice Collective to, do social change and to get the church activated and doing social change, you jump into that mission, you actually start to receive an impartation of that capacity, that passion, that skill set, the, specific abilities start becoming more natural to you. And I don't know, that sounds selfish, but that's a really good reason to show up. and to like whatever, get a job or do an internship or serve an organization, like you can actually get better at that, the thing that they're already doing.
Mhm.
And you may not notice it, but I guarantee you guys 6 months from now, you're going to be like, whoa, that's crazy. The stuff that I'm like kind of understand that I maybe didn't think I understood a while ago. So I do think that's a benefit there, you know, because sometimes we get afraid of serving and we think we're going to lose our lives, and or maybe they're going to control us. These leaders are going to control us. And I don't know. I just haven't really experienced that. It's really more like I just get a bunch of good stuff from the people I'm running with. I get to still be myself, you know? What else is in my mind here? What do you guys think? I'm interested in this one. What'd you learn about yourself? Whoa. Whoa. That's heavy. Don't turn the mirror on me, Lance. Don't show the world who I am.
I think I definitely learned about myself that I definitely have a tendency to lean way more towards like get stuff done, task oriented.
Okay.
When it comes to like being on a team and trying to figure that out in a different way, I'm like, oh my, like that's been hard seeing
Yeah.
that about myself.
Well, I mean but that's not negative. It's like you're an executor. You're good at tasks. That's great. That's super needed in sort of any role you'll find yourself in. But I think what you're bringing up is maybe you thought you would like avoid some of the relational stuff because of just getting stuff done, or what do you mean? Because you're almost saying it in a negative tone.
It would be that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And oh, it was funny because I remember at the beginning of the year being like, I want to learn how to be a part of a team. And then I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, that I need way more understanding and experience there, like learning that about myself.
Cool. Well, that's probably a good experience for you, being with us.
Yeah.
Nice. How about you, Carol? What'd you learn about yourself?
I mean, kind of like the same thing. Like it's one of the things. Like I always been very social.
Yeah.
But when it's like a team stuff, and then the work that I was doing was like task kind of, and it was, oh, actually I like this. I like more than like being, like around people sometimes to work, not like in real life, but like to work. I prefer like to get stuff done. This is one thing that I discovered about myself. And the other thing I feel like is like I'm stronger than I think I am.
Yeah.
Like
that's good. I like that.
That I have a voice, that I can use my voice, and then I can, like I can like put some boundaries, and I think yes, I've learned this year.
Nice. I like that. That's great. Kara?
I feel like I could take this multiple directions.
Sure.
One thing specifically, I think it was helpful for me to recognize where I'm at with, I saw it in my personal life and also on the team, like areas of growth, becoming more consistent in like things I say I'll do and follow through with that. And so I think it's just been interesting to recognize like there's I think a large deficit in my character in that area.
Okay.
So, like being able to start making those like small steps towards how can I close that gap.
Yeah.
That's one thing I learned about myself. I think like I always thought of, because I always worked super hard, so I thought that I was very effective, and then kind of seeing like there's areas where there needs to be some changes. That was helpful to see that.
Yeah, we kind of broached the subject of atomic habits at some point in the year. We talk a lot about rhythm, like schedule and flow. I think those are two big dynamics in achieving what you're talking about. Like, hey, there's a disparity between what I say I'm going to do and what I'm able to do. So developing rhythm, understanding how you can get flow. Flow would be more like a atomic habits, like things that I do to promote good rhythm.
Yeah, I think even the conversations we had, maybe in a slightly different vein, but like about making a schedule and like looking
Yep.
at what your days contained, that was so helpful for me because I was like, oh, I'm not doing that much. And then I wrote it down. It was like, oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because I think all of us, well, I don't know. My perception as a pastor and working with people in a church context, we feels like most of the people that I work with lean in the direction of woe is me. Like they're hard on themselves. Like they really give themselves quite a hard time and don't give themselves enough credit, and so even to the statement you just made where you're like, whoa, I'm actually doing a lot more than I thought I was. So yeah, getting practical and being able to really assess how you spend your day, it's incredible how empowering that is. And then just looking at, oh, I like the way I'm spending my day, or hey, I'm spending my day in ways that are not conducive to me being happy, joyful, productive. So I need to make some adjustments, it's really basic leadership stuff, but to me, it's shocking how few of us really know how to do that. And like just assess and look at our rhythm and make sure we got the right things populating our day and our time. And in that sense, it is simple, like goal setting, hanging targets, being clear about what you're going to get done, being clear about what you're going to say no to, and all within a context of self-respect, not just whipping yourself into shape. I have a bunch of things in my schedule that I have to do. No, like live your best life, go ahead and dream it and then put it into a rhythm and make sure you're investing in that. So there's a really big thing that one of the principles Matthew Kelly teaches within the Rhythm of Life and other books he's written is like if you want to be happy, your happiness levels will be very, very married to the kind of work you're doing. Like, can you be honest with yourself and say at the end of the day, I did good work? If your days are full of like, no, I really didn't do good work, you're not going to be happy. So, I mean, I don't know why that isn't discussed a lot. We always talk about dreams but like we are wired to be productive and to make an impact in the world. So I'm preaching.
I think even just like having conversations we had of like why I'm so driven or why I just feel the need to like have an insanely full schedule.
Yeah.
Are so helpful.
Yeah.
Why do I feel so much pressure? And I think, throughout the year, I was able to gain insight into that, and probably like the last few weeks, especially.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But like having someone else talk you through that's very valuable.
Which is another side of the equation is that you have, if there's a relationship of trust blooming with your leaders, whether they're a boss or a mentor or maybe a spiritual father, mother, when trust is kind of blooming, and notice I use the word bloom, you don't just like make trust happen. It like grows over time. If you're experiencing that, that's another massive benefit, isn't it? Like you can get some input from somebody that has your best interest in mind, and you don't feel like it's just trying to fix you or control you. And maybe over time, you can see some healthy shift in your mindsets because you've had the ability to be vulnerable and say, here's where I'm at. Here's some things I'm really going through. And I just recognize when a person isn't able to elicit that vulnerability or express that vulnerability, that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Because again, it's like whatever season you're in, but that's definitely a benefit. You can maybe you can have the kind of conversations that help unravel some things in your thinking that probably aren't serving you very well, Is there anything that you guys would share with somebody that's going to approach, whether it's a job, whether it's an internship, a third year, like, hey, like these things would help you to really maximize the experience as you guys are wrapping up. And so it is a bit of hindsight 2020, like, hey, if I were you, I'd kind of carry some of these things in mind as you're about ready to engage in that new, and it's probably advice to yourselves too, as you go into a new season. You'll be making some new commitments eventually. And some of your commitments look like, well, we're just going to kind of unplug and see what's next, which is cool. Others maybe already have a sense of here's what my next thing is. But yeah, what would you tell somebody like, yeah, this will really help you maximize the opportunity?
I would think I'll just say two things briefly. Like one, and this is maybe not so appropriate for job context as much as like a mentor.
Mm.
But like for me, it was super important to find someone who would prioritize like having some personal input in my life and
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mentors that's not as much the case.
Yeah.
So I mean, looking back, that's been so valuable and so impactful in my life. So I think that was a really big deal. I'm very grateful for the time that you took to like, you were pretty available, when I needed to talk about something or I needed some input. And it was always something that I never left the conversation without, feeling like I gained some perspective or wisdom or transformation, that I needed.
Yeah.
The other thing would be like, maybe don't take things personally, especially in the context of working on a team. Like when there is conflict or an issue that needs to be addressed, like if you can not take it personally, or even if somebody needs to tell you like, something that you're doing that's not in your own best interest.
Yeah.
That's probably valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So you led with like kind of understanding and knowing who you're signing up for.
Yeah.
And what they prioritize for. And you're right, I do prioritize for like, no, I want to actually be a mentor. I'm going to function as a boss in your life too, but I want that to be like a mentor type relationship. And I prioritize in my rhythm. There's one-on-ones that you can keep, but there's definitely, my door is open if you want something more than just like a regular one-on-one. And I've demonstrated that. I've worked it into my rhythm. So I know you have access to me. I will say this though, to discredit me as a good mentor, I'm probably not the best at like going after those that are in my world. Like, it's like, you're in my schedule and my door is open. You can find me. I am definitely very available, but I'm not like hunting you down, So some people sometimes require that from their mentor. And I notice over the years, I haven't been that just because I'm like, yeah, it's in my schedule. And you guys know, I love you. If you need more than just the one-on-one, you just call. So, but probably that's just learning how I operate. And then you wouldn't take that personally. Like, well, why doesn't he come after me more? Yeah, I like, that's a good point. Anyone else?
Like, be flexible and intentional. And this last one, I mean, like,
That's
I
cool.
don't know how to be yet.
Yeah.
I think like I'm in a processing of learning how to be intentional with people, but like to be flexible, I think is really important for someone that is like trying to find a job. This is hard for me too. It's like those two things are very important, I think, and it's like a challenging for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great point. Very astute. Yeah, be flexible. Yeah, you do. I mean, it sounds a little performance-y, which in our culture is not something that we're wanting to promote, but it is. You want to be attractive to your team or to your boss or to your mentor. You do want to put on a good face. You do want to be, oh, wow, I can reach that person, or I can talk to that person. And flexibility is very inviting. Rigidity is like, I don't know, if I talk to them, I don't know how they're going to react. I might I might be made to feel like a bad guy if I go talk to them right now. And I don't think that's great leadership to be afraid of your people. I think you should be able to talk to anybody at any point. But flexibility is really nice. It's like, oh, cool. We're going to have a conversation because they're flexible. Rigid people, it's like, I don't know if they're going to hear me. Good point. And then intentional, like get your needs met, know what you need. Sometimes, especially in a team context, there's enough people going around or enough people in the mix that if you're not good at knowing what you need, you might just get passed over. And it might not be because people don't like you. It might just be because there's a lot of people. So it's smart to be intentional. Yeah, direct. That's good. I don't know if that's what you meant by intentional, but that's what comes to my mind. I'm sure there's other elements of intentionality that apply. Anything else you wanted to add, Carol?
Yeah, I think like in asking questions, because for me it's like very difficult to ask questions. I don't know how to ask questions actually. And then I was like, it's a thing that she has so good.
Yeah.
And then like she's like, it's a strength that Kara has. And it was like, how do you get to this conclusion? How did you ask, like why did you ask that? Like how can I ask that? You know, it's
Sure.
a thing that is like, especially like from you, like to pull stuff like from you, because you were here like to mentor us, you were the leader. So it's very important for us like to be intentional. And sometimes I feel like I'm not being intentional as I should be, you know, because I have like, it's like challenging for me because I don't know, it's, you know, it's
Sure.
just, yeah, I think I'm bothering, or, you know, just, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's that thing with intentionality right there. Like we all have our limits or lids or straight up hangups, you know what I mean? Or weaknesses, things we're not good at. Yeah. And so that's really wise what you're bringing up. Like, okay, I know I'm not good at this. So if I don't exercise some intentionality here, I might get left out in the cold. I might not see growth, right? I might not develop as a person or a leader. Yeah. And so, yeah, you do have to maybe take some more risks. You know, I do think that's back to what we were talking about earlier with vulnerability and like, you know, how do you cultivate relationships? If there's a relationship, a two-way, there's going to be a lot of grace, you know, versus a lot of like, I don't really know what's going on with that person. At least there'll be connection. And when there's connection, yeah, like, I think like you can share, hey, I'm not really good at this one thing. Can you give me any input on that? Whereas without connection, it's hard to even show your weakness, right? Yeah. That's good. Phoebe, what about you?
Yeah.
Please speak.
I would want to say, like, find the value in what you're doing and in what you're learning, wherever that is, whatever it is you're choosing to do next. I think just understanding that there is value that you bring to a place and to people that you won't even recognize until you're in that place and with those people. Like just taking note of what other people appreciate you for, or the way that you do things, like just things about yourself that are so normal to you.
It's great.
You actually end up discovering that they're things which bring like genuine value and impact to the place that you're in and the people that you're with around you.
It's great.
Like finding the value that in the lessons that you're learning in that place as well. I find so much life in just being like, I'm learning this lesson at this point in my life. And I think within that context, it's like it brings a lot of value knowing the bigger picture of whatever it is that you love doing, that you want to do. Like whatever the next step is, the one next step, I just say like rinse out of it as much like value and as much lesson and as much learning that you can in that one place. And yeah,
that's awesome. It's a great point to end on, because I just want to celebrate the value each of you has brought to our world. You guys individually, collectively have added a lot of color on the walls of our world. Like you've definitely brought who you are to the table. You've been present, you've been engaged. I think that we've navigated difficulties together at certain points in the road, which I appreciate. I appreciate that you've been willing to navigate those difficulties. But I love the point you're making, Phoebe. It's like, as people, we have to be okay with, here's who I am, and this is what I'm doing. And hey, at the end of the day, what I'm doing matters, because it does. And if we're going to bed at night, like, is what I'm doing valuable? Is what I'm doing helping anybody? Is what I'm doing even making the difference? That's just a recipe for disaster. But if we're like, hey, I did my best, and they asked me to do X and I did X, like, cool. Or they gave me permission to dream a little bit and I didn't really know what to do, but I tried. And at the end of the day, I'm like, that's awesome. That's living, like you're showing up and you're being yourself. And you certainly did that. All three of you, you brought a lot of value, a lot of practical, you executed a lot of practical work for us, but you also influenced our relationships. You guys have definitely inhabited our souls, like you're in our worlds. We think about you. Our relationships are affecting each other. It's not like we're strangers, just not impacting each other's journeys. You know what I mean? Like there will forever be the mark of Carol, Kara, and Phoebe on me and the JC world. And I just think that's a rad thing, So good job. I appreciate the three of you. And thanks for doing this little conversation too. I think this is valuable, kind of little leadership conversation around doing a third year experience. You guys had some really good stuff to share. Anything you want to say as we wrap this thing up and say adios?
Thank you so much for being you and for being a great leader and to give us freedom and thank you so much, Lance. It was very special for us.
Come on.
Yeah, I wanted to just say quickly, thank you. And also, like, they ask us to give like feedback on our mentor, like what their strengths are and stuff. And for me, like, it was very easy to immediately, of course, there's like other dynamics that are great strengths for you, but like your character, like consistently living out of a place of love, of persistence, of patience. And even like, I think it's not that common to find leaders who are like actually put someone else's best interest. Like we've never felt pressured to like, it's not like you're like, everybody should serve what I'm doing. You're like, how can we develop you for what God's calling you to? Or, that kind of dynamic where there is a lot of freedom, like Carol said, valuable. And I think that's important to be aware of too, when you're like looking at leaders. But
nice.
Yeah. You're very empowering, I think. I was just think like you challenge, but you're such a safe place at the same time. Like I've never experienced it in that way before. And just having conversation about leadership, like I've learned way more about leadership this year just by being with you than any other year of my life. So
that's cool. That's great. Well, I receive all that, and I don't want to minimize your statement, Phoebe, but I think that is connected to the doing element, that you were given kind of roles to function in, and you're treated like somebody that needed to lead, and so that's where you learn when you're doing it. But I receive all that encouragement that I've been modeling some good leadership for y'all. I'm going to miss you guys. It's been such a pleasure. Thankfully, it's not over as we press stop on this recording. We still got another week or two together. Love you two. Love you three. I'm going to say adios. We're wrapping this one up, and we will talk to you guys soon. Peace.
bye.